Hey neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install CURT's Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2025 GMC Terrain. The GMC Terrain has a pretty good back trunk area so you can haul a lot of stuff, but in those events where maybe you need a little bit more space, maybe you need a cargo carrier, or you want to tow a small utility trailer, that's where a trailer hitch is going to be needed. And with the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver, we're going to have a great solution for you. Taking a closer look at our receiver tube, this is going to have that 2" by 2" opening so that you can fit all your accessories in there. Now, if you have 1¼ inch, you can still get a reducer so that you can close that down and still use your accessory without an issue. This is going to come with a 4,500 pound gross towing capacity and a 675 pound tongue weight capacity. Now, that doesn't mean that you can go ahead and just throw all that weight on there because your vehicle has a capacity on its own as well. So you will want to look through your owner's manual, figure out what your vehicle is capable of handling, and then going with whichever is the lowest rated. This trailer hitch is going to require a 5/8 hitch pin and clip, which will not be included with the trailer hitch, but typically that is included with whatever accessory you have. If it's not, then you can also pick one up here as well. And along with that, just to give you an idea, so depending on what trailer you're towing, you might have a different style clevis or hook for your safety chains. For this style safety chain loop, the S hook is going to be the best option. There's plenty of room for it to move around and kind of sway back and forth as you're kind of turning or making any movements on the road, so it won't bind up. But with our clevis, it's a little bit larger, so with that on there, you kind of have a little bit of stick there, but for the most part, you should probably be good without it having any issues, unless you kind of go from the bottom up. That's where it's kind of binding up a little bit more, and then you could probably tear up your inside of the paint there and have an issue. So I'd probably just stick with that S hook style. Now let's take a couple of quick measurements to make sure that this is going to be the right fit for us. As far as ground clearance, you're looking at right around 9¾ inches. So you might have a little bit less ground clearance than you'd really like. Typically, we like to see at least 12 inches. So depending on your accessory, you might need to get an adapter so you can kind of raise it up a little bit higher so that when you're going down a decline or you're going up an incline, you aren't bottoming out and scraping up the bottom of the shank on your accessory. Now, another thing I have seen a lot more recently is accessory that has an extended shank. So this tube is all the way open, all the way back, and then it's going to butt up against our exhaust. And for that, we have about an 8 3/8 from the back of our receiver tube up to the hitch pin hole. So you should have plenty of room for that accessory. That shouldn't really be an issue. Now for folding up our accessories, so your bike rack, cargo carrier, if you're putting that in storage mode, you're going to have roughly 5½ inches out from the center of the hitch pin hole to our fascia. Now as far as installation goes, this is something you could easily do at home, but if you aren't interested in installing this yourself, or maybe you just don't have the tools to do it, look at our dealer locator and you can just enter in your zip code and find a local shop to get your hitch installed. If you are planning on doing this yourself, like I said, it is pretty easy to do. You will need a couple extra things though. You're going to need either a grinding bit or a file, so that way you can kind of enlarge the holes that we have in our frame here, so that way you can slip the head of the carriage bolt into place and get your hitch mounted. Now that we've gone over that, let's go ahead and show you how we did it. Start off our installation, I've ran a cam strap from coil over to the coil, and what that's going to do is help support our exhaust once we lower that. Before we can get to our exhaust though, we're going to have 2 screws that we're going to need to take out, and these are going to require a T15 Torx bit to do. So we'll pop those 2 out, and that's just going to give us a little bit more room to work with here. Now, using a 15mm socket, we're going to remove the bolts holding up the rubber isolators for the backside here. You're going to have that bolt head be facing towards the front of the vehicle, so you want to make sure that you're grabbing onto this and not the weld nut that's on the backside here. All right, we can push up on this, kind of get that tab out of the way, and then we'll slide this down. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we can drop that other rubber isolator hanger. You can spray a little bit of lubricant on here too, and help make it easier to slide off. Right out. out, and then our cam strap is going to help hold that up. If you want to, you can also just pop these off, just have them out of the way, but I think we'll probably just leave them on because honestly this hitch is going to be super easy to just pop right up in. We're also going to just kind of pry back on our fascia, and then you can drop the bracket for the muffler here back a little bit. And like I said, if you wanted to, you could pop this off. You don't really have to. I mean, that's a fight that isn't really worth your time. Just kind of slide it up out of the way, and we can kind of move those around still if they do get in the way when we're sliding our hitch into place. So if we look up at our frame rail, we're going to have a few different holes here. This larger one that's 1 inch in diameter is going to be where we pass our carriage bolts through and our spacer blocks. And we would use a fish wire, and that's going to pop out of these 3 holes that we have aside from it. So what we're going to do is we can hold our carriage bolt up to here. It's honestly not going to be too much trimming. They say to go to 1 1/4 inches, but realistically, you could take about 1/8 of an inch off of this and be good to go. So we're just going to get our grinding bit, kind of grind this out until the head of the carriage bolt fits through. So now that we have our hole enlarged, we're going to run our fish wire through. So what I've done is I've just threaded on our fish wire onto that bolt. Now I like to leave a couple of threads off just because I found sometimes when you go all the way and it kind of gets stuck on there, it doesn't want to come off real easy. But we'll also slip on our spacer, and then we're going to pass our wire through. What I found is if you kind of stick your finger up in there, you can kind of push the wire up, hit your finger, and then you can kind of pull down a little bit so that you can angle it into that hole. So that's what we'll start with. I'm going to start with this very back one, just so I don't have stuff in my way when I try to do the others. And then once we get it up here, I'm going to separate the spacer. We'll push that through, and then we can pull our bolt through. Now you might have to wiggle it around just to kind of get it to come through. Inside of here, there's a bunch of plates kind of just stacked up and crimped over each other in this frame rail, so it was snagging us for a bit, so we did have to kind of fight it for a while. But now we can go ahead and pop in the other 2 bolts on this side and then keep it going over on our driver's side too. With an extra set of hands, we're going to lift our hitch up into place. Let you get your set in first. Come over. And then we're going to pop in our fish wires. Now in the center, we're going to have 2 holes, but we're only going to be using that slotted hole. Pop that through. Once we have our fish wires in, we can lift our hitch up. Might have to wiggle around just a bit to get that bolt to pop through. There we go. We can pop off our fish wire and slide on a bolt, or a nut, sorry. With that first one in place, that'll help hold the hitch up so that we can get the other 2 in as well. Typically, I like to kind of just press on it and get my nail right in between the threads to put some tension on it so the bolt doesn't slide back into the frame rail. If your finger is too thick, then you can use a flat screwdriver and kind of put some pressure on it. But with that snug down, we can torque it as well. Now we can put our exhaust hangers back up. Next, we can put in that rubber isolator for the other exhaust hanger. And then we can remove our cam straps. And the final thing is going to be just putting in those screws that we took out for the fascia. And with those back in place, that'll do it for the installation. Well, I think that about does it for today's look at and installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2025 GMC Terrain. My name's Kevin, and if this video wasn't helpful or you still have questions, please feel free to reach out with either a comment on this video, a email using our Ask the Experts link, or also a phone call to our customer service department, and they would love to help you out with your journey.